Pretty sure I was almost lured into a sinister Halloween trap. This just happened a few hours ago. I have called and reported it to the police and I am home safely, but guess I am still in shock. Could do with putting it down in writing to process it and figured this is as good a place as any to share what happened. I finished work early today and so decided to go out for a run. I set out around 4:30 and decided that my usual routes, which cross many roads, will not be very practical. And so I took an alternate route along a canal towpath and some pathways through woods that I knew would be less busy. Everything was going well. I was pushing myself steady until I got to a pathway on the way back around 6 kilometers into the route. It is a long, straight path with a canal on the left side, and on there, right there, is wasteland where some factories used to be but have mostly been demolished. It has been left abandoned for as long as I can remember, and is overgrown with trees and weeds, but there are the odd bits of an old factory that for some reason weren't fully demolished. As I got level with one part of the factory which still had some old metal fire escape steps attached to it, I noticed a rough-looking guy sat on the wall with his legs hanging down. He jumped to his feet as he saw me coming and shouted something, but I couldn't make it out. As I came level to where he was, I heard him say, "Wait there, can you help me find my phone?" He said this while he was running down the steps, and so I stopped as I got level with where the bottom of the steps was, meaning we were standing just a few feet apart but with a fence in between us. It was a really old iron fence with vertical metal bars that have spikes at the top, like you sometimes see around churches and things. He asked me if I would help him find his phone again, saying he had dropped it somewhere nearby, and asked if I could ring his number so he could listen for it. I felt I couldn't exactly refuse as my phone was strapped to my arm, so I said he could tell me the number, and I took my phone off my arm and unlocked it. He blurted out a phone number, but said it far too fast, and it didn't begin with 07, which made me start to feel like something wasn't right. Although I was beginning to suspect at this point, I wasn't really worried. I am in pretty good shape, had a big size and weight advantage over him, plus there was a fence between us. He didn't seem in very good physical shape and seemed like he might be homeless. I figured if he was trying to mug me for my phone, his only chance would be if he pulled a knife, so I made sure to stay a good distance away from the fence and kept my eye on where his hands were. So I told him I didn't catch any of the numbers because he said it too quickly, and he came out with another number. This time it did have 07 at the beginning. I entered 7 numbers, and then he started to look around and saying, "I can hear it. Come and help me look," as he looked around at the ground. I was about to say that I hadn't even finished dialing when a much larger black guy appeared from behind a section of wall to my right. He was also really scruffy looking, and from the look of his eyes, it seemed like he was on drugs. He came out saying he could hear the phone ringing over towards him and beckoned me to come through a gap in the fence and help look. The white guy then said, "It is ringing, yeah?" And I told him it was, even though I still hadn't dialed the last digits, and now I was sure they were trying to lure me to come over to that side of the fence. After 2 or 3 times of them both beckoning me to come and help, always insisting they could hear the ring, I heard the black guy say, "He's not going to fall for it." He said it in a hushed way, as if he thought I wouldn't hear, but with it being out in the middle of nowhere, I could clearly understand what he said. The white guy then started acting quite aggressive and punched a tree, telling me he needed the phone badly, and how his whole life was on the phone telling me to come and help them look for it. While he was punching the tree and ranting, the black guy had taken a few steps away to the right, meaning I couldn't keep my eyes on both at the same time. It was after 5 p.m. by this point, and had gotten dark all of a sudden, which made the whole thing even more unsettling. I noticed there was a gap in the fence where some of the bars had been removed right where the black guy was heading, and I decided at that point to get the hell out of there and made a run for it. Neither of them said anything as I ran away, which makes me sure that they had malicious intentions. If they genuinely lost their phone and needed help, I would expect them to shout, "Where are you going?" or something to try and get me to come back, but they didn't shout anything. After sprinting for a good 20 to 30 seconds, I turned to see if they were chasing me. They were both stood on the path around where the gap in the fence had been, but were not chasing me. They were just standing there watching me run away. I continued running away but kept looking back every few seconds until I was out of sight. It was at this point I got off the canal path and onto the roads. The person I spoke to on the phone to report it took my details and the descriptions, but seemed to think it wasn't anything worth worrying about, but said it will be investigated. The whole incident has left me a bit unnerved, and I'm pretty sure I won't be jogging that route alone anytime soon. Man who wanted to use my mother's telephone. This is technically my mother's story, although I am also in it. When I was 4 months old in 1994, my mom and dad had been having money issues, and as a result, he would often work late. One late Wednesday night, around 9 p.m., there was a knock at the door, and my mom put me down in the living room and went to see if it was Dad, having forgotten his keys. She opened the door without looking properly, and a man was standing on the doorstep. He smiled at her and asked if he could use our phone as his car had broken down. Flustered, she said yes, and walked backwards a little to let him get to the telephone that lived on the hall table. However, he didn't stop at the table and kept walking up the hall towards her. She asked him what he wanted, pointed at the phone saying it was right there, and said her husband was getting out of the shower. This is where it starts to get really creepy. He stopped walking, cocked his head to one side, said he didn't hear the shower running, and then gave her a really big smile. He added that he thought it was just her home right now, wasn't it? Mom said at this point all she could think about was trying to make it to me, maybe dropping me out a window, trying to get us into the bathroom that had a lock, praying to any god or gods that were listening that Dad would pull up in the driveway. Anything. And then she heard a growl. Mom had been out getting the washing in from the outside laundry before she'd gone in to check on me in the living room and had left the back door open a crack. Our Doberman Pride had gotten into the house and had walked out of the kitchen into the hallway between Mom and this man. She started growling and showing all her teeth, and Mom told him to get out now before she set the dog on him. Apparently he freaked out and backed out of the house before taking off down the street. Dad got home about 20 minutes later. Felt like eternity, according to Mom. The man was never caught and we never saw him again, and I really hope I never do, even though I wouldn't know him if I saw him. Pride lived till she was 13 and was the most spoiled dog ever. I don't know what would have happened to Mom or me without her. Don't drink anything you didn't open yourself. More than a few years ago, I was working as a burlesque entertainer in a gentleman's club and was idly sitting at the end of the bar one night when a couple came in, not unusual. I had no contact with them and thought nothing of their being there, until later. A few days after that night, the doorman handed me a piece of paper that had 2 names and phone numbers written on it, Laura and Richard. I was supposed to call one of them, so I called Laura, who told me they had been the couple who'd been at the bar the other night, and they'd noticed me and thought I'd be perfect for a part in a movie Richard was producing. Would I be up for a meeting? Of course I would, who wouldn't? I was told Richard would pick me up the next night at 7 and to wear something wild. 7 o'clock came the next evening, and I was ready in a white lace dress with ostrich feather trim when Richard showed up outside my building. So I went down, introduced myself, and got in the car. We agreed to go to a local bar I knew well for the meeting, but first we had to go back to his place so he could pick up some contracts he'd forgotten. So off we went. He went in the house and came back out with a few manila envelopes and an open bottle of beer, a brand that I didn't drink. Plus, it's against the law to drink alcohol in a vehicle here. So I stuck the beer into the window well of his Jeep, and we went to the bar. At the bar, he showed me what were supposedly scripts from this movie he was producing, and some contracts, and it looked pretty legit. Richard was very nice, and I was interested. I'd made some plans to go out later with my soon-to-be boyfriend, so I excused myself to go call him on the bar's payphone, and took my Corona that I'd ordered at the bar with me to the bank of phones. As a dancer, I'd been taught by the other older girls to never let your drink out of your sight. My boyfriend wanted to get going to another club, so I went back to the table where Richard was and told him I had to go. He didn't like that, and tried a few different things to get me to go to the movie set with him, saying I could meet Mickey Rourke and check out the set. But all I really wanted to do was meet my boyfriend, so I declined, took Richard's card, and left. I never heard from Richard again, but a couple of months later the police came around to the bar I was working at. They had 2 big books of mugshots and a stack of Polaroids with them, and they wanted to talk to all of us about a predator couple who had been setting up meetings with dancers by saying they were in the film industry, then drugging and raping them. They showed me the 2 mugshot books and asked if I saw anyone I recognized in the pictures, and I immediately identified Richard and Laura. Then they showed me the Polaroids, which were trophy pictures of the couple in the act of attacking the poor drugged girls, and asked if I knew any of the victims and where they might find them, in order to talk to the girls. I only knew a couple of the women in the photographs, but There were a lot that this had happened to. Richard and Laura were prosecuted. He went to jail, but she didn't because she was from a wealthy family, and she also turned witness on him. About 12 years after Richard was convicted, I saw in the newspaper that he was up for possibility of parole, so I wrote a letter to the parole board telling this story and urging them to not let him back out, because he's a dangerous offender who should have to stay in prison for the entirety of his sentence. If I had drank that opened beer he had handed me in his Jeep on the way to that meeting, I wouldn't have made it to the meeting and would probably have ended up in that stack of Polaroids. Girls and guys, always keep your eye on your drinks. Have fun, but be careful out there. College basketball team creeps. I've never shared this story with anyone. I was always too afraid to be judged for it, so it's something I buried down until my friend brought it up the other day. We both have daughters, and we're talking about how we could educate them on being safe when they are teenagers and experimenting with partying. When my best friend and I were 17 years old, we went to the beach for spring break with a couple of our guy friends. My friend was talking to this guy she had met through mutual friends, and he wanted us to meet up with him at a house he and his friends had rented together. Our guy friends had ditched us to meet girls, so we decided to go ahead and go to her friend's house to hang out with them. When we get there, it was the middle of the day, and he took us inside and introduced us to everyone. Turns out almost all the guys were on a basketball team of the same university. We all hung out and they were all drinking. My friend and I were not. One guy came out with 2 glasses of what appeared to be whiskey and Coke. Against my better judgment, I started to sip it, as did my friend. There was one guy who appeared to not be athletic, and he was the only person at the house who was not friendly toward us. I'll call him Mike. Suddenly, I started to feel very buzzed. We were laughing and talking, and one guy asked me to put on his jersey. I grabbed it and put it on over my clothes. "No, take off your clothes and put it on," he said in an aggressive tone. I was feeling more tipsy at this point, and I knew something was very wrong. Our parents had let us drink with them multiple times. I knew what it was like to be drunk. I knew how much I could handle before I was drunk. And one drink never made me feel like I was getting wasted. "Quit babysitting that drink. Drink up, weakling," one guy said as they all laughed. Even though I had stopped drinking, I could still feel more and more buzzed, especially since our drink barely tasted of any whiskey. My dad always had whiskey at home, and we would drink a couple whiskey Pepsis on occasion. I would feel relaxed, but this was much different. "We should go, our friends are waiting for us." I headed to the door and a couple guys stood in front of us. No, you can't leave. Come sit down over here for a little bit," as they ushered us back to the couch. This sinking feeling hit my gut, and I knew we were on borrowed time. Trying to stay calm, I laughed and said, "I need to pee. Come with me." I grabbed my friend's hand and we went to the restroom together. We both stood there, and we had already read each other's minds. I put my hands on her head and looked her in the eyes so we could both focus. "We need to leave now." Our phones both had spotty service all over the island, I'm guessing, because there was so many people packed on it. "Take my keys, tell them you are going to go get your purse, and I'll stay here. You go get the guys and come back for me." I knew this plan probably wouldn't work, but my mind was going crazy. As I opened the bathroom door, Mike was standing there. My heart sank. He was rude to us earlier, and he probably heard us talking. "Follow me and be quiet," he said. Something inside me trusted him with everything I had in that moment. We followed him down the hallway to a garage and out to the front driveway. "Hurry up, get out of here now." We ran to the car and I drove off to our hotel. I remember driving, but I don't remember getting to our condo. The rest of the story is from our guy friends telling us what happened. Apparently, we walked in and the guys asked us where we have been because it was already nighttime, and we were supposed to meet up to BBQ some weenies. They said we didn't say a word, just walked to our room and closed the door and passed out. We didn't come to till the next day, and both of us had excruciating headaches as if we had drank a whole bottle of cheap vodka by ourselves. To the basketball douchebags who tried to take advantage of 2 teenage girls, let's never meet again, or I will kick you in the dick. And thank you, Mike. I wish I could thank you. I hope you're out there reading this and you remember the brunette and blonde little girls you saved that day on the island. A mom's worst nightmare. This happened about 8 years ago in Germany. My daughters were 4 and 2.5. It was a very nice morning, so I decided to take my girls to a little mall to walk around and do some shopping. My girls are and always were very well behaved and never ran away from me. Usually we always held hands walking around when it's an area with many people. On this day the mall was almost empty. Still the girls stayed on my hands. I noticed a man passing me. He looked at my daughters with a very stern look that gave me a bad vibe. I just brushed it off and kept walking. We wanted to go to a shoe store. This store had a very cute play area that the girls liked to go to. As we entered the store, they asked if they can run ahead to the play area. I could see it right while walking in, as it was at the end of a wide walkway. I told them yes, and they took off. At that exact moment, that same strange man burst in the store and speedwalks past me towards my daughters. It didn't even took me a sec to realize that he was up to no good. He was absolutely focused on getting to them, fast. I instantly start yelling while running past him. I said, "Girls, come here now." I am never very stern, but they sensed I am serious. He got thrown off by my yelling. I got to my daughters before he could, turned around, and he was running out of the store. I was so shaken. A store worker came up to me and asked what happened, and I told her. I waited for a while until I felt myself again to leave the store and the mall. With both babies on my arms,